We've all been there when we sit at our desk to try and study in silence, but just can't get going. So we put some music on, we put some classical, but we find it quite boring. Maybe we experience some lethargy. We put on some lo-fi and we find it quite repetitive. We put on some pop or some hip hop or your favourite music and you start singing along. So if you want some music that's going to help you stay focused, but also keep you upbeat and excited to work, then you might just want to hear what I've got to say. What I listen to when I need to study is movie scores. Let me explain. I needed a type of music that would add some urgency and some excitement that also wouldn't give me massive heart palpitations, that make me highly stressed and unwilling to work. Now, the beauty of movie scores is that they've been made to try and reflect a moment on screen. They're highly emotionally charged, they're very empowering. This is music that's been curated by someone to elicit an emotion response from you. As a result, I've now managed to create a playlist that's about 24 hours long that consists of movie scores from a load of different movies that sometimes will heighten my emotions and my heart rate and I'm writing really fast, and other times it's much more calm and mellow and kind of brings me back down so I don't combust in the middle of the library. When I compare it to other forms of music, I've realised that it kind of has a slight edge in various ways. So I mean, one reason I couldn't listen to mainstream music was that I used to be like a little English literature GCSE kiddo who'd kind of listen to the music and kind of analyse the lyrics and think, wow, that's so deep. But when I actually started listening to classical music, I had no way of getting around that because it's only music, it's pure music, there's no words to it, it's just pure emotion, and so there's nothing for me to kind of grapple onto. I just had to get down and do my work. I mean, on the complete other side of things, you've got mainstream music that's been designed to be catchy and to grab your attention, which is literally the last thing I need when I'm trying to do my work. I don't want to have my attention diverted, I want it to be on the page. But when you have some sort of like Katy Perry song screaming in your ear and you can't listen to it, if I listen to my favourite band like the Cortinas or the Arctic Monkeys, then it's very difficult because I love their music, so I'm kind of looking elsewhere. But if it's something from Hans Zimmer, if it's Time from Inception, then oh my god, of course I'm going to do my work rather than start singing along to anything else. So in that sense, it provides a good backdrop for music without trying to take centre stage. With classical music, it did the similar thing though. It didn't have words that would divert my attention, but instead I didn't always find it entirely focusing. As much as I do respect classical music and I enjoy it from time to time, I never found I could listen to classical music for prolonged periods of time without starting to become quite slowed and subdued by it, actually. I think it's lovely music, but I never had enough of a playlist going that I was always, at times, being focused and enjoying my task. Classical pieces, while still beautiful at times, don't convey that same urgency and immediacy that movie scores can provide. I think that kind of encompasses why movie scores are so perfect. They've been crafted to convey the emotional highs and lows, the urgencies, the necessity of the character on the screen. And when someone has spent hours poring over it to create an emotional response in someone, that's just the perfect music I need to study. Listening to movie scores has brought me several advantages I've found when studying, and so I want to share some of those with you right now so that I can hopefully convince you to also listen to movie scores. For one, it's actually made me want to sit down and look forward to studying. I mean, now I realise that saying that makes me sound incredibly nerdy, but it's true. Listening to this epic and emotionally charged music does eventually bleed into you and you decide, well, yeah, I want to listen to it again, I want to get down and do some work. When a new piece of music comes on or there's a little tonal shift because I go from one style to another or from one film to another film, it's so fun to listen to because it just constantly keeps me on edge and keeps me guessing what's going to come next, whilst also keeping the spotlight all on my work. Another thing that I think is true for all types of music that you listen to while studying is that it reduces the need for you to check your phone. We always look for those excuses to kind of have a quick look. Maybe you see an email pop up from your school email and you use that as a reason to pick up your phone when obviously there's absolutely no need. But listening to my music would always give me an excuse to feel like I was already using my phone. I didn't need to check my notifications because technically my phone was already in use. When there's already this complex and stimulating music present, there's no need for the brain to try and find these other distractions from the work because it feels like it's already being fed enough other higher energy stuff. And this obviously leads to a more focused and productive study session. There is also improved cognitive function and memory. I mean, studies show that music can be very useful in helping memory retention, but the elements of music that help in that memory retention are often the repetitive elements, things that kind of act as white noise to the surrounding environment. And these repetitive elements are particularly prominent in movie scores. I mean, these movie scores that will have the same motif popping up here and there to kind of act as a red thread throughout an entire film. As a result, this movie score music is actually just a heightened version of all this other music we hear that's out there to help us study. Another reason why I think music and movie scores in particular are very good is that they will give you enhanced motivation and mood. One of the main reasons I'd always stop work or revision was because I was getting quite bored and I couldn't really be bothered, and it was just quite a dull experience. But when you've got the music that is playing when Ethan Hunt is cutting the red wire in Mission Impossible, or some epic montage is happening in Lord of the Rings, well, of course that's going to want to make you study. It's so motivational, and it's been designed to show someone else on the screen when they're at the very pinnacle form, when they're absolutely destroying life. And I think that reflects on you when you're doing your work. I mean, obviously I'm not cutting the red wire, I'm learning the blimmin' oxidation states and stuff in chemistry. But whatever it is, it was incredibly useful for me both at A-levels and at uni. And finally, I think this customization and personalization side of things is really good for kind of blurring the line between pleasure and work. I mean, it's one thing sitting down and watching a movie and enjoying it. I do love films, I love cinema, but it meant that I kind of spill over that enjoyment I have there into my work, because when I'm watching a film, I can then work out, oh, I like that movie score, I'll kind of slip that into the playlist somewhere. Does it mean that you can kind of blur that line so that the things you hate and the things you love kind of become the same thing? And it's meant, thankfully, that all of my enjoyment from cinema has poured into studying rather than vice versa. So if you're thinking of creating your own playlist, then I'm going to recommend a few songs for you which will pop up on screen while I'm speaking, which you can give a go, have a little listen to them, see what you think, hopefully you'll be impressed. But if you then want to take that further and create your own playlist, then I recommend a few little things, little tidbits here and there. So one thing is, if you're going to be choosing songs from a playlist or an album or a soundtrack that has a very repetitive motif going through it, then make sure to limit your selection from that thing, because you start to resent that soundtrack more and more if you hear the same soundtrack popping up time and time again. One example is Interstellar. They've got the same little motif from Hans Zimmer, a lovely soundtrack, one of my favourite soundtracks of all time, but if you have 7 different songs from that in there, then you're going to keep hearing it and you actually will start to resent that soundtrack. If you're not sure and don't want to give it a go just yet, give some of the songs I've recommended a go, see what you think, give me some recommendations below if you listen to any other songs that you think are pretty good. I'll be sure to let you know what I think of them, or if I already have them in the playlist. This, as I say, this is something I've used from all the way back from year 11 and now through my first year at university, and I've found it served me well to study long periods of time. So do give it a go, tell me what you think, and check out some other stuff on the channel if you fancy. In a bit.